we are not solving the world's issues here. I mean, so while I'm all for you improving yourself and understanding, trying to get better and this and that, at the end of the day, don't forget, we're expendable, we're replaceable. Let me tell you what, they fire me tomorrow, they'll bring in somebody else in, and those members won't care one way or the other. So if you think you're more important than the, because you do this or you teach that or you're this, that, and the other, you're not. You just need to understand that this is a people and a people game, and it's an experience. If you can give them a good experience, yes, you want to have some knowledge behind it, but if you can give them a good experience with some knowledge, and they come away happy, and they come away with a better disposition on whatever it is that you help them with, you know what? You've won, and you've created, and you're a good teacher.
All right. Very happy to be here with Mr. Tom Stickney. I think I got that name right. I always get nervous I'm more nervous to get people's names right than I am to do the show. Even people I've known for years, I've botched them in the past. I'm like, God, every time I call someone's name out, I get a little nervous. Well,
I've been called a lot of things. I teach golf for a living, so I've been definitely called a lot of things. So I'll answer to pretty much anything you tell me.
I reached out you're with the Sunday Red.
Yes, sir.
Group. And I reached out to, have you come across or met Charlie Hudak yet?
I have not. I know the name.
He's the shoe designer.
Okay.
Charlie's a great guy. I had him on the show. Later on when we're done, I'll sing. Talk about marathon sessions. He and I sat down at his brother's house because his brothers lived here in Hilton Head for 20 plus years.
Oh, okay.
His brother Chris and I are good friends, and he introduced Charlie and I. And Charlie, I think he was with Puma back then. And we sat down and we just talked anything you want to know about shoes and feet.
That's pretty cool. I have to admit, I don't know. I don't know enough to be dangerous about it, but it was interesting. I have the shoes, and they are comfortable. They are pretty neat. It is the one thing I have figured out about that brand, and I say this, not because I'm wearing it, but just in general, is a lot of brands have come and gone, and they've said that they're going to do something. Tiger, when he decided to do this, everything is top quality. Everything is over the top, nice. The packaging, the whole deal. It's the quality of the fabric. It would have been really easy for him to just go, you know what, I'll just slap a cheap shirt on there, put my name on it, and make some more money. But from everything I've heard, he's been incredibly involved in it, and I've been pretty impressed. So if you see it in your local shops, it's at least worth a try on.
Yes. I felt the material. You're right. It does feel great. It's kind of,
it's pretty interesting. And the shoes are interesting, but there's just, and it shows you that every company has just put out such great stuff. It's amazing the detail that's going into all these, a pair of shoes, you just think, well, you just put them on your feet and you can use anything. But, now all of a sudden they've got, all these studies about ground forces and things like that, trying to figure out, how the spike design and the nubs work. It's interesting.
Yes. Let's see. There was Charlie. Then what's it? Oh, he's going to kill me for not remembering his name. It's just been a long day with the dog and everything. But from Painter, it'll come to me in a minute. But he's been on. Who else did I have on to talk about footwear? But that's the whole point of the show, is to introduce people maybe to some of these people that they've worn their products and they love them, and they don't know who is behind it. And so it's been kind of cool to get them on and talk about different things other than just the usual things in golf. Does the ball go too far? Driver face is too hot, etc. But one thing I wanted to ask you about, because I'm tech challenged as they come. The fact that I can do this and get people to show up on the screen and record is amazing to me that I've gotten this far. But you've done videos a long time. As after you said you're going to come on, and for a while I've been following you, and some of your videos are 13 years old, which is pretty. So you got in it in the early days, but I see or heard somewhere, well, you on another show, I think On the Mark, maybe you discussed it, where you said you hired a social media person.
Yeah.
And so you got to tell me about that, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I just post away and hope that there's likes.
It's funny. I originally had gotten into the social media that, all I had was YouTube. So I said, you know what where it started, the genesis of this whole thing, is I was doing a lesson, tipping lesson, a pitching lesson or something, and I said, here's how you do it. This is the 3 ball positions or what have you. And, I'd give these ladies a cheat sheet, or there's been a cheat sheet or whatever, and then, they'd lose that, and then I just said, "Well, you know what? I'm gonna do a video on it." So, and I just uploaded it. It was just done for 1 student, and then it just kind of perpetually grew from there. So, basically what I did is put everything that I teach within reason, that I see on a day-to-day basis kind of in those videos. So, they're just quick little snippets on. So, if I talk about the grip, there's a video on the grip and so on and so forth. So I started there and it just kind of grew. And so I put all the videos up and then never really did much with it after that. That's about the time that I ended up moving to, moving out of the country. So I took a little break. And when I came back, I don't know anything. I don't know anything about, I never had Facebook. I never had Instagram, and all this stuff. So I ended up meeting a friend down here, and Brandon Matthews play the tour. He's in rehab with his back and everything, and he's got some physiological issues he's working through. And his wife happened to run this social media company called DM Creative House. And she said, "Hey, I have Brad Faxon, I have Jason Bale and Mike Belizia and some other people, and I think that I can help you because my husband plays golf for a living, and she seemed pretty golf savvy." And it was amazing because, I don't know anything about it. I just and she came in and said, "Okay, it's just amazing the detail that goes into these social media companies." I mean, it's not just throw them up there, because I've thrown stuff up there that I've gotten 2 views, and then, you get somebody that knows what they're doing, and all of a sudden you get thousands of views, and
Right.
it's pretty interesting. So, you know, I'm her probably what they call the best type of client only because I don't know anything. I don't know enough to be dangerous. I just say, "Danielle, come out and video me, and I'll give you a bunch of tips, and then please don't involve me with anything else past that." I just whatever you think's best, you know it more than I do, It's like me going to a stockbroker and telling him which stocks I'm gonna invest in.
Yes, exactly. I think I've known Martin Chuck since I was, let's see, 16. I think Martin was 3 years older. So I think Martin's about 56 now. When he came on, I did not know this. I mean, I knew he got started in the video, whether it was YouTube or what, early on.
Right,
But he said something similar, that the reason, if I'm not mistaken, and Martin can correct me if I'm wrong, post down below or wherever you got to post, or call me up and say you got it way wrong. But I'm almost certain that he got into the video game because his members had to get them to park in the right spot on the cart pass.
right.
Where he park here if you're going to go to the green, and it will help pick up pace and all these things. And that's how he started. And he would carry this the receiver on his back of his belt all day, most of the day, and just do different videos. And that evolved into doing lesson videos and so on and so on. And
Yeah.
Martin's the tour striker king now. It's like, it's
He's
crazy.
he's he's done an amazing job, and, if you go back, you talk about somebody that's had videos out there for a long, long, long time. I mean, this guy's forgotten more videos than
Mhm.
he's done. Yeah, he's great, and it's so cool to watch somebody grow and continue to mature and get better. And you watch his career, and even when I first started to see kind of the stuff from because he was we were our golf course was tied into the golf course where he was teaching back in the day. And when he went out to the Raven, I was interested to see who took the guy's place that was there before, and so I'd kind of followed him and saw his videos, and strikingly just everything about him is just screams professionalism. I mean, the guy, great looking guy, knows his
So
stuff.
smooth on
Yeah,
camera.
he really is. I don't like his hair. I always give him a hard time. I say, I'm like, he's just so perfect. One day I just want enough hair so I just want to be Ric Flair one time, woo, so I can have some fun with it. But I'm afraid I'm follically challenged.
Yeah, I'm with you. Everybody that's seen my pictures, I don't want to take the hat and headset off now, but everyone does. Some people said when they say who's coming on, I said, Tom's coming on. They said, where'd you meet him? I said, at the barbershop. And I said, you'll see when he comes on the show. And when I post it, we met at the barbershop.
Exactly right. Well, I'll tell you a great story. When I went to Mexico, I'm walking down the Malecon, And it's, and these the guys are always trying to get you to stop and do whatever. The guy goes, "Hey, hey, hey, gringo, the good Lord only made a few perfect heads." And I'm like, "Okay, what's the punchline?" He goes, "They put hair on the rest of them." And I went, "That's good enough for 50 pesos." So thank you, gentlemen in Mexico, wherever you are. I kind of like that. So I've used that quite frequently.
You are probably the envy of many a coach. I mean, there's various coaches, I would probably say a lot are envious of Sean Foley because he got to work with Tiger, and obviously Como's worked with numerous number one in the worlds, and he has a show, and people are envious of that. But I would say a fair amount of coaches who have known you for a long time and nor have followed your career, or follow you online on social media and so on, are probably envious of all the cool places that your career has taken you. And I wanted to touch on that because as I was learning more about you and talk, we have a lot of mutual friends, and finally good to meet you, although it's virtually, and we'll meet, I'm sure, at the PGA show or somewhere soon.
Forward to it.
But it's as I got to learn more about, I'm like, wow, this guy really has done some pretty cool things in some pretty cool places. So I just want to ask you about that. Was it a plan? Did it just happen?
You know,
Tell us the story.
I have been so lucky. I have gotten to live and teach golf in the places that people save, millions and millions and millions of dollars for all their lives to live there and work there. And I mean, to live there and play there and do whatever. And I still look back on it and just go, golly, I can't believe, I'm 54 now, and I can't believe it's taken me to this many wonderful places. Basically, what happened is I hate cold weather with a passion. I don't like it. I don't function well, and I grew up in Memphis, and it
Hmm.
was cold, and I said so, when you live in the Southeast, the only place you think of, I mean, my little world was so small. I was like, well, Florida. I never even considered that there was California, Hawaii, about to hear there and yon. But so I decided that as soon as I got a chance, I was going to move to Florida. I didn't care where it was in Florida. It could have been Key West, all the way up to Jacksonville, and all the way over to Panama City. But I got a chance to teach at Sandestin, and I got a chance for them to build an academy down there. And so I went down there for 7 years and it was so much fun. Again, that was my first real job outside of living in my neighborhood, so to speak, where,
Hmm.
my father had played golf. So everybody knew, in the golf circles had heard my name because of my father's name rather. And then, so when I taught, I kind of had an instant, kind of following, just
Right.
because he had been in the circle. So Sandestin was really my first opportunity to do stuff. And then, and so I stayed there for 7 years. And then what happened was 9/11 hit, believe it or not. And we were a drive-to destination. The airport hadn't been built in Panama City yet, international airport. So what we did from there is, we were busy enough, but I started getting a little wiggy because now all of a sudden, the sky is falling, and we don't really know what's going to happen. And so for me, it was like, well, where did I need to go that has a little bit more support? And for me, I had a friend of mine that was there. It was in Naples, and his family lived in Naples. So he said, "Look, let's go look for jobs down in Naples." So he and I went down to Naples and tried to find jobs, and he ended up getting a job, and I ended up getting a job at a golf course down in Naples during the winter. And I was going to stay year round because I was perfectly happy being in Florida. It was warm, Naples was great, life is good. And then I ended up meeting a young lady and got married. And she was like, "I've lived in Naples all my life. I don't want to live here anymore. I'm so tired of being hot." She said, have you ever thought about teaching out west?" And I went, "No, I haven't. Never really thought about it. I figured that you're going to sweat from X to Y, and that there was every place that's the way it was." And she said, "No,"
Hmm.
she said, "You know what? I used to go out to the mountains when I was a kid. Why don't you send some resumes out to the mountains?" I said, "Well, what mountains? Where?" She just said, "I don't care. Just pick mountains." So I sent a bunch of resumes off just to quiet the conversation down. And the first batch I'd sent out to Vale, a gentleman at the Cordillera in Vale, Penty Toffrey, had decided. He said, "You know what? This sounds like a good idea. And we have 4 golf courses, and
Wow.
we have 750 members in the summer." He said, "We can't take care of everybody. We'd love for you to come down and build something." And so went there for, God, I was there for 12 years. and got a chance to build an academy there, put some high tech stuff in there, and so just loved going back and forth between Naples and Vail. And then I figured out that, you know what, that 32-hour drive is a lot to be desired, a couple times a year. So I said, maybe I should look out west because it was the only other warm weather destination that was a little bit
Mhm.
closer to Vail. So I just sent a bunch of resumes out to Scottsdale, thinking, in southern, and then Scottsdale, nothing really panned out in Scottsdale. Uh, thank God, and I'll tell you why here in a second. But I ended up going over to Palm Desert, California, over at BIGHORN Golf Club. And anybody that's been out there and seen BIGHORN knows that, it was just one of the luckiest breaks in my career that I got a chance to go over there and experience that lifestyle and that type of club and environment and things like that. But it was funny. I'd gotten over there when I was in my mid-30s, and it was funny. I talked about wanting to go to Scottsdale, and then I had gone to Scottsdale and gone out a couple times. I would have killed myself in Scottsdale. I would have killed there would have been absolutely no you would never I'd never have made I'd have gotten fired in 30 seconds. I had never made it to work the next day. I mean, every place I went there, now I was single at the time because I'd gotten divorced, and so I'm looking around going, I'm seeing this is the land of the beautiful people. I mean, the guys are beautiful, the girls are beautiful, and I'm just sitting here thinking, oh my God, what's this fat slug? I can't, I got to get out of here. I mean, no one's going to look at me, so it was pretty funny. So I ended up going over to Bighorn, spent 7 years there, and then what had happened with the Cordillera is they had a kind of a developer fight, and one of the developers had come in, and he had taken the club and done a few things that didn't really agree with the members, and so they basically took the club bankrupt to eliminate some debt. And so we went from 750 members to down to less than 100, and so I just said, I don't want any part of this. I don't want any part of what was going on at the time. So I ended up having a mutual friend that lived in Park City. So I ended up going over to Park City for a couple years, working over at Promontory and Tuhey. And then as I was doing that, I was going back and forth through Palm Desert and Park City. So that was fun. And then I ended up meeting one of my clients ran a bunch of resorts in Mexico. He ran the golf side and sales and marketing side, and so he was like, "Look, I need somebody to come down and run all these golf academies at all these Mexican resorts. Would you be interested?" And I'm like, "Well, okay, sure. I want this," and I'm thinking, "There's no way he's going to do any of this." And I figured, you know what? I'll go. Even if they do, I'll go down for a year or two. Probably won't like it, and then I'll probably just make some money, and I'll come back to the States.
Mhm.
Anyway, he went, "Okay, that sounds great." So
You're like, "Why didn't I ask for more?"
I was like, "Oh my god." And I remember looking at my girlfriend at the time and saying, "Well, I guess we're moving to Puerto Vallarta." I had never been off the resort, so I'd never seen much. So anyway, went down and spent 5 wonderful years in Puerto Vallarta at Vedanta the World now. It's where they host the Mexican Open that you see that I think Jake Knapp won it this year or last year, I can't remember, and then was over at Punta Mita, over the Four Seasons Punta Mita for a couple years, and then decided it was time to come back to the States. Mom and dad live in Destin. So for me, I wanted to get back to Southeast Florida. I want to retire down in this area whenever that happens. And I'm a huge scuba diver. So that was the
Makes
part of
total
Florida.
sense.
Yeah, that was the part of Florida that it was warm, had great, it was a golf mecca, and it had great scuba diving, and I went, "Okay, I'm in." And then so fortunately, I sent out some stuff and the right things happened and the right people happened to cross paths, and Jonathan's Landing gave me a great opportunity, and, I can't thank, Brian Corbett, my director of golf, and Joe D, our GM. I mean, as I look back on I don't know how they sold this whole thing, but I'm just so glad they did, and I couldn't be happier, and just this whole round circle of where I've been and what I've done. The only thing that happened to me is I just kind of looked at it like, where am I now? Where do I want to go in the future? I always looked at jobs where I never looked at them like they were full time. I always looked at it like, okay, this place has 250 members and it'll take me this long to probably saturate the membership. So this is probably a 3 to 5 year job if I was to guess, because at that time, every job was an independent contractor. So you had to
Mhm.
keep jumping around every 5, 6, 7 years. So you stayed relevant. You stayed, you made some money because after a while, they'd been there, done that. They tried it. They did some will, some won't. So we kind of went from there. So that's kind of what happened. And it was, as I look back on it, it was just dumb luck, and it was so much fun. I just can't. Everybody should try to should go into a couple different places. I really think you should go see all the things that you want to see, whether it's the mountains or the ocean or the this and that. Don't just sit in your town that you grew up in, and don't go anywhere and see anything just because you're too lazy.
Yeah, I went to Ferris State, and I
Okay.
was in their golf program, and one of my interns was supposed to be in Tucson at La Paloma,
Hmm.
and I was gonna take that summer off because you talk about cold, man. It got we always used to say, "Who in their right mind decided to stick a golf school in northern part of Michigan?" They had
Northern
to be out
Michigan.
yes, they had to be out. Don Perney, and I can't remember the other guy's name, drawing a blank again, we're just talking about it last week, but anyway, I was supposed to go there, and they called me about 3 weeks prior to me leaving school for the summer and, said, "Hey, we're not gonna be able to take an intern." And I'm like, what am I going to do now? So the
Right.
summer, I just wanted to go home and play golf, and I caddied on the weekend, or and partied all weekend with my friends. So it was a full summer it was the best summer of my life, I think. I because in Canada you could drink at 19,
Oh yeah.
so we would go over there and get wrecked, somehow make it home, and then I get home at 3, be up at 6, go caddy, make the turn, or get the caddy special. The hot dog, chips, and Coke was like having filet Cabernet and a great baked potato.
Good.
It was so good. And then I'd call my mom when I was leaving because it was about 15 minutes home, and she'd have some lunch for me there. And
Yeah.
I'd take a nap, and I'd go to the golf course and play, and until it was time to do it again. It was beautiful.
It's so much fun.
But I ended up Hilton. I went back to school that summer because I said I got to go somewhere in the fall, and I ended up it was either Atlanta or Hilton Head. And my dad said, "Well, it'd be kind of nice by the ocean." I had no idea what Hilton Head was.
Yeah.
Had never
Great
been
place.
south of Morgantown, West Virginia,
Wow.
and came to Hilton Head and was just jaw dropped. I'm like, this is
It's
unbelievable. I'd
it's
never seen palm
beautiful.
trees, and I had planned to do what you did,
Mhm.
or at least I wanted to do something like that. But I've been here 30 plus years now. I've been,
Yeah.
s- I've been stuck
Well,
here. What's
and
a good place to be stuck?
yeah, it is a good place. And I think, it's what's funny you mentioned that because I was always in smaller markets, Destin, Naples not huge. Destin, Naples, Jupiter's not a huge market. I mean, we have a lot of saturation, but a lot of people here, but the city itself is not very big.
Hmm.
Had I been like Randy Smith, and been in Dallas, and had a metropolis behind me
Yeah.
and a good golf culture, or a Chicago, or Kevin Weeks in Chicago, or EA Tischler up there, I can see how you could end up staying somewhere and go, look, this is, I've got this, I've got it, I can't leave. I think when I ended up going to Destin, you know, my first real job outside of Memphis, I think I just fell in love with the ocean, and I fell in love with the small town kinda mentality, and this, that, and the other. I don't you could offer me a lot of money to be in a lot of different places that I just couldn't do it. I just don't have that personality, and don't like all the all the stuff that comes with it, but
No,
more
I
power
don't
to
blame
you
you.
if you like that. There's a lot of things, I'm sure a lot of people probably get bored living in some of the places that I've lived.
Exactly. Your career is very distinguished, and we'll get into your education on that in a little bit. But along those travels, you had to meet some very interesting people, mentors, learned a lot. I'm sure life lessons, coaching, I think how you become better. Had plateaus and didn't think you'd get any better, and then all of a sudden you run into somebody and hey, Tom, let me show you this. I think this could help you. Or you went and I'd like to learn from you. What can you show me some things? What are some of the ones that stand out to you as the biggest life changers for you?
I don't even know who told me this, but he was talking about Butch Harmon, and he said they asked Butch what his most important job was, and he said, "My most important job is making the person that's standing in front of me feel like they're the most important part of my day." And I went, "God, that just seems so brutally simple,
Hmm.
but so hard to do." And I went, "That's brilliant." So I've always tried to ever since I heard that, that was always stuck out in my mind that, to try to be as focused as possible. And if you know me, I'm bad about the phone. I hate those stupid things. And so it's you'll find that if I can turn it off or I can put it away, I can fiddle with it. I don't mess with it because I'm just as bad as everybody else, if it's sitting here in front of me. But but Butch was obviously a turning point. I think one of the biggest turning points in my teaching career was meeting a guy by the name of Charlie Long. Charlie was a golf machine authorized instructor back in Memphis when I first started, and he had learned under Tom Tomasello, and
Mhm.
which everybody knows that name. And it was funny. So here they hired me to teach, just because they didn't want to teach, or excuse me, the director of golf didn't want to teach. Charlie was just he was just kind of doing his thing. He was like to play golf and have some fun. He wasn't really into doing that much with the instructional side. He really enjoyed teaching the better players, and we didn't have a lot of decent
Mhm.
players at that club. But anyway, I would teach, say what I thought I was saying was reasonable, and then I'd listen to Charlie teach. He was standing next to me. I'll never forget this lesson. He was standing next to me, and I'm teaching, but I'm going, wow, this guy's saying a lot of stuff that sounds really, really good and really, really correct and really, really systematic. And I went, and I'm pretty analytical as well. And I went, wow, that sounds amazing. And I'm not talking about everybody talks about all the nomenclature, the verbiage of all of what Homer's. I'm just talking about the information. And I went, wow, that guy, whomever wrote this book, knows something. And I want to know what that something is. So when Charlie introduced me to the book, I ended up going through it under Ben Doyle, and it was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I learned so much. Now, would I call myself just the most knowledgeable golfing machine instructor out there? Of course not. There's guys that can talk circles around me, but I have enough of the premise to it after being an authorized instructor as I went through it. Then I met a gentleman by the name of Chuck Evans, and Chuck Evans was actually a PhD in the thing. He was the guy that he went actually and met with Homer. Homer taught him directly, and then he became, and anybody that knows Chuck knows he knows that book backwards and forwards, upside down, and what have you. Same with like Brian Manzella, and so a lot of those guys, James Lights, a lot of those guys kind of helped me along the way with learning that style. And so I think that really was interesting. And then a little bit later, right after that, there was a product called the Swing Motion Trainer that come out by a company called Sports Sense, and it was a 3D. It was a two sensor system that basically showed tilts, and rotations. Made by the name a gentleman by the name of Mike McTagg out of San Mateo, California. So I had to have one of those, and then that started my whole indoctrination into the high techy world of video and force plates and 3D, and it was just, and that's where I kind of went from there. So I think when you look at those guys, that would have been my biggest contributors. Certainly introducing me to the golfing machine was pretty cool. And then I think probably the most impressive thing I've ever done was go through the Morad school with Mac himself.
Yeah, that had to be very interesting.
Very, very interesting in the aspect of incredibly systematic, based off of a lot of the golfing machine, a lot of the anatomy and physiology of the body, and then coupled with his professional skills to be a tour player. I was like, wow, this is the perfect. You got a tour player that's knowing all this stuff. I said, I've got to get with this guy and glean any information that I can get from him. And obviously, anybody that's spending time around Mac knows that your time with Mac is short lived. And it was 4 days. I'll never forget. I called Mike Bender. I said, all right. I said, Michael, I got to go. I got 4 days or 6 days with Mac in Valencia. What do I need to do? Mike just started laughing. He goes, better get your sleep. And I went, it's kind of odd. All right. I figured he'd talk about the golf swing a little bit, but oh no. We rolled in there. He's there at 8 o'clock, and he was still sucking air and spitting out knowledge at 12 o'clock that night. And
That's
it kept
amazing.
on and on and on and on. Every video you see with him online, and he's going off on this filibuster that you think, I mean, he could talk on the golf swing in an educated, systematic manner for as long as he wanted to talk. It was unbelievable. Just a shame that he was probably born 20 years before his time, uh,
Mhm.
and it's a shame that whatever personality attribute he had that ostracized him people from him, kind of drove him away. It would have been really interesting to see him take some of these thoughts and really expand on them with 3D motion analysis, with force plates, with all the TrackMan and all the different tools that he really didn't have any experience with. So it's pretty interesting. So those are my guys that helped me along the way. But I'm sure there's countless others. But and obviously you want to thank your students because without
Right.
tripping myself with a couple of them early on, I wouldn't be as knowledgeable as I am right now, whatever level that is. It was born out of a lot of experience making mistakes before and hopefully not making those same mistakes now.
Yeah, I heard you talk about one of your lessons. I think it might have been one of your early ones where you said you what you had the person doing, you wish you could. Is it they came in as a 10 and they left by the time you were done with them, they were a 20 something. And I mean, I think I'm like, I'm listening to this like, yeah, I could either refund the person's money or say, look, you got a lifetime of free lessons if you want to come back. Now I've gotten a little better, but
Yeah. That
it's
was the guy's honest truth. His name was I'll never forget this guy's name was Gordon Kirkwood. He came to me. I just gotten all my 3D motion analysis equipment, and by God, I was gonna tell him everything under the sun about what he needed to know. And by the time I got through with him, I had him tied up in so many knots. I'm telling you, if I was Ledbetter, Hank Haney, Foley, Butch, all of them rolled into one, I'd let him a lifetime of free lessons. I'm sorry I destroyed your game, Gordon, wherever you are.
that there was a family here that owned it was Nevada Bob's many years ago, and then it was
Yeah.
golf headquarters that they changed the franchises, better circumstances for them, but the Colella family, anyone who's been at Hilton Head knows the Colella family. But I asked him, how the hell did you guys get in the golf business? And they owned a gift shop. Their family moved here in the late 70s, early 80s, I think. And they owned a gift shop. And Mick would go around because there's so many yard sales around here. Great consignment shops here. And
Mhm.
he would buy clubs to learn how to refit. This was in the wood era. He would
Yeah.
refinish and do the whipping and on all these things. His mom tripped over some of them in the office and they had to take her to the hospital and came back and she took all the clubs and put them out on the floor, under the card where the upper card rack was. One day someone comes in and says, "Hey, how much for that club?" And he, no idea. How about $10? He says, "All right, I'll take it." And then Nick was gripping his clubs one day, the old green Victory, the
Oh,
dollar a
yeah.
piece.
Everybody
Guys
has
are,
them.
he said, and he tells a story. A guy came in moping behind his wife. She's shopping. They're on vacation. And he says, "You do grips?" And before he could say no, the guy ran. I said, "Let me get my clubs." Goes out to his car and he regrips them and came back and said, "How much do I owe you?" He said, $60. The guy said, "Fine, here." Pays him. He said, for dollar grips for 10 grips, like, it's 60
Yeah.
bucks. I wish I could give the guy's money back. But I thought of that story. I thought I've got a number of my own stories I could say that they're not here to hear me, but I heard that and I'm like, Tom and I are right in line with that one.
Oh, yeah. It's so funny. And I just had this conversation with Jeff Smith. As a matter of fact, we were laughing about experience because he's in the process of trying to hire another teacher. And what was so funny is I was like, "Do you remember when you first started? And how long did it take you to figure out what you were doing? How many people did you screw up along the way? Blah blah blah." And what we were talking about was how good these kids are nowadays. As I said, I'm 54, so I look like the kids that are coming out of school. In the last generation, the generation before that, right before mine, and they have access to everything, YouTube and Instagram and this and that and the other. And you can find anything on anybody, on what anybody teaches within reason, and you can live and you can learn. And you can have all the book knowledge in the world. And it's amazing. I said, these kids come out and they probably know more than we do. I said, but you know what they don't have? They don't have the thousands and thousands of hours on the lesson tee that we do. But you know what's going to happen? Since they don't have to make all the mistakes, it's going to take them probably about half the number of lessons to be where we are right now. And it was really interesting because of course, now you go down that rabbit hole. But I really think that golf's in a great place. Everybody gives YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. They poo poo on some of the all the stuff that's out there. But the great thing about it is it gives everybody a forum to say their piece.
Hmm.
And you've got and look, and right now there's debates, there's on Instagram about this and that, and then there's different style debates. This style is the only way, this style is the only way, and those two guys clash and, blah, blah, blah. But it does give us a chance to see what's out there. And, and I like what Mike Malizia said. He said, "Look, I want to find the guy that I disagree with absolutely the most, and I want to go take a lesson from him." He says, "Because I want to pick his brain and see I'm either missing it entirely or something. What is it? What am I missing? There's obviously something that's wrong with me." And that's the way I've kind of looked at it. Like, I want to know, you know, I wanted to know everything, but there just wasn't that access back in the day.
Hmm.
If I could have been born now, I would have I'd have never left the range with TrackMan and force plates and all that stuff. I'd have never left the teaching center. I mean, ever. I probably would have never played golf. I just did nothing but hit balls.
I somewhat did that when I moved here. At the Plantation Club at Sea Pines, Rick Barry was the director of
Yeah.
instruction there, and then Don Trahan was over at Harbortown. Don's book had just come out back then, and it was I guess for that time period, it would be as much of a like the chipping debate is now, because Don was raised the arm swing kind of in the Nicklaus fashion, and Ledbetter was more of the big muscles, body rotation. So it was much of a controversial
Mhm.
topic back then as you could probably get. But Hugh Royer was one of his bigger name players. I remember when Hugh
Yeah.
got his card, and there were a number of others. But I was working the bag drop, and when I would have to pick the range, I would pick it as fast as I could, and I would sit there and way in the back in a cart and just listen to these lessons over and over and over again. And for me, it was I could have done that and I did do it for hours.
Mhm.
I just made sure to keep my mouth shut, and so that they didn't turn around and say, "What are you doing over there?"
Yeah, exactly.
And I could have done that for even longer, to your point, that when you get exposed to that, and you're learning that you like the
Mhm.
coaching profession, even though you're not coach really yet, that just absorbing the information
Yeah,
is just euphoric in a
it
certain way.
is. And you know what? And I think the biggest if I could do one thing over, I wish I had the knowledge and the wherewithal to go seek out all the top instructors, but it was such a closed shop when I came up.
Yeah, back then everyone guarded everything.
Yeah, so if they found out you taught and you wanted to go see, like, Hank Haney was big when I was a kid, and because he was teaching Chip Beck and Mark O'Meara, and they were on the Ryder Cup and had won some majors, and so I went out to go see Hank, and I was a college kid, and so I went out to see Hank and McKinney and gave me a lesson or 2, and then a couple years later, I said, "Hey," I called him up and I said, "Hey, look, I'm a teacher now and I want to learn some stuff and, I'd love to come shadow you." And they go, "Oh, we don't do that." And it was different, and it was not Hank himself. It was just one of his people. I don't know who I talked to, but it was a close shop. And so now, I really wish I could go back in time, or I had the time to go take a lesson from everybody you could name. Anybody you could name, I want to go, gee, I want to go to Stack and Tilt. I want to go to Short Game Chef. I want to go to Joe Mayo. I want to go to this. I want to go to that. I want to go to I want to go to gravity golf, natural golf, the whole gamut. I want to try them all. That's probably what I should have done. But when I grew up in Memphis, there wasn't a lot of great teachers in that area, and I'm talking about that region. Had I been born down in South Florida, or had I been born out in California, and maybe there would have more populated places, maybe there would have been more golf. But we had some good teachers, but we didn't have anybody that really moved the needle educationally until much later.
Yeah, I remember when the Little Red Book came out,
Hmm.
and this was the same time that I would go watch those guys teach. Now I'm just a 20-something-year-old kid, first assistant job. I wasn't the first, but my first assistant job as I
Right, right,
moved
right.
up from the bag drop. And I said, man, I would love to go take a lesson from Harvey Pennick. And I
Right.
got to thinking, like, okay, it's how am I going to get there? How am I going to do this? I basically rationalized myself out of it, but I kept staying, go do it, go do it, go do it. And then a couple years later, he passed, and then you have I wish I would have.
Yeah.
But that would have been really, really cool to sit in
Yeah. I
front of
can
him,
imagine.
and so simple, and all his knowledge in his head.
Yeah. There's a great story Now, whether this is true or not, I don't know, but this is the funniest story. I've recanted this story, on the fifth party. So I'm going to accept it as true because I like the story. But anyway, they, s- you know, the supposed story was Hal Sutton had won the PGA. I mean, not the PGA, the U.S. Amateur, and so his father had flown him out to go see Mr. Pinnock and said, "Hey, I'd like for you to look at my son. He just won the U.S. Amateur. He wants to turn pro and see if you say anything," because he was teaching. Pinnock was teaching, obviously Crenshaw and Kite at the time.
Hmm.
And so, Hal's hitting balls and whatever. And so Harvey looks in from this angle, and he's hitting balls. He looks at him from this angle, and he looks at him from this angle, and he looks at him from that angle. Then all of a sudden, he just turns around and starts walking back to the thing. And Hal's like, "What the hell are you doing, man? I came here for a lesson." He said, "Keep doing what you're doing." And that's it. And now whether that it's happened or didn't happen is irrelevant. The bottom line is it reiterates what Harvey did so well, and that's keep it simple. And
Yes,
he
and
said a
give
lot with
people
very
what
little
they
words.
need, which I think is missing big time in today's world. I think with the
1,000%.
advent of the technology, and you can name any piece of tech you want. And I used to be labeled as anti-tech when I would say this, but I think we've come far enough now that people are saying, no, you weren't anti-tech. You were just saying there's more to it, which is if you give somebody the wrong medicine at the wrong time, you can really cause some damage.
A
Like
million
like like
percent.
like my dad is allergic to penicillin, as ironic as that may be. And, for most medications or illnesses throughout his, he's 82 now, penicillin was the go-to drug. But
Right.
if someone gave that to him, he's in deep trouble. And if you give somebody the wrong thing, not you, Tom Stickney, but any coach out there gives someone the wrong thing, even though it's the latest, greatest in technology, but it's not what that person needs. You could really cause their swing some
Billion
trouble
percent.
or physical ailment or injury or whatever it is. And I think that's what Harvey was. Of course, he was 90 plus years old and had that. He probably made the mistakes you would think when he was younger, because you don't get to that level of acuity or intelligence in your field without making some mistakes. So it takes time to
Oh, yeah.
develop that.
No
But
question. And
I think if we had a little more Harvey Pinnock combined with the technology that we have today and
couldn't
be able
agree
to
more.
grab one piece out from here and say, take this. Remember his old thing, take a pill, not the whole bottle.
Not the whole bottle. And look, and I think instructors, and I certainly went through this, when you have technology, it's very, very easy when you don't have the experience to want to tell them and to show them how smart you are, how many big words you know, how you understand the articulations of the body and the nomenclature that goes with it. And then on top of that, you just want to spew all this information. And
Hmm.
I went through it and I found more people up trying to give them too much information or try to do too much or try to, follow the latest greatest craze. But I think in the end, you have to realize that you just can't do those things. You just have to realize that there's a lot of other ways to do the same things. And this technology is here to help us. James Light said it great. He said, this technology is not here to watch you, the students, here to watch me, the instructor. So if I say wiggle your left ear at the top of your backswing, and your path is supposed to go more to the right, then all these things should agree that then it should start trending that way, you know. But all too often, these young instructors want to get into the minutia of the thing. And look, I'm all for all the golf research that we're doing. Let me tell you something: Brian Manzella, Michael Jacobs, E.A. Tischer, Mike Adams, Terry Rolls. I mean, we can go on and on and on and on about guys, you know, uh, that are going down these holes of Dr. Kwan and doing some stuff that is absolutely next level stuff. But you've got to be careful that when you're talking about these certain things that are so minute, you know, and you're talking to Mrs. Haverkamp, who's a 40 handicapper, sometimes you got to work around her limitations. And
Hmm.
sometimes when you start mentioning big words and things like this, she doesn't even know what side of the club to hold
No,
sometimes.
right over her head. And the thing that I explained to you, there's a golfers college here called Professional Golfers Career College. And when the market really hit the skids 15 years ago, I was, I guess, they call it a professor. I'm not a professor. I'm just kind of helping out and helping these young people learn. And one of the classes was teaching application. So the first class and it's like 10 weeks. It's kind of staged like a college. And so the first class is in the classroom, and then you've got 8 weeks out at the golf course where they give lessons for free anybody in the area can come take lessons
Oh,
for
that's
free. And
cool.
then I would watch them teach and then help them or critique them or what have you. And it was that was kind of the beginning, I think, of some of this technology and linguistic stuff that people are using. And I said, you got to be very careful because if Mrs. Camp comes to see you and you say you're the expert, whether she knows you're a novice teacher or she knows you're in the top 100, she is looking at you at the expert. No matter what you say, and you say, "Do you understand that?" She's going to say yes or nod her head up and down, whether it sinks in or not. So, as a coach or teacher, you're going to have to extract from her body movements, facial expressions, long list, how she's moving, her reactions, et cetera, et
Mhm.
cetera. Did she grasp what you said? And not in your own head, did she grasp it? How do you need to change it? Because you've only got so much time with them. And how many times have coaches, young coaches in particular, said, "Well, I had them hitting it great on the range, and then they're they can even hit it for a few holes, but their handicap's actually gone up a stroke or two." And that's I think you have to go through that learning curve, or hopefully they don't. They've got someone like you to say, "Hey, I think if you worked on this,
Right.
maybe look at it this way, that you might not fall into that category because it's not just numbers here. It's not paint by numbers."
No,
That's what I used
no,
to tell people. The Mona Lisa was never painted by numbers. You could paint her by numbers, but it would never be
it would never
the
be the same.
beautiful thing that's the same. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and it is. It's the art and science. It is the art and science of instruction, and you cannot have one without the other. We've already figured out that when we didn't understand the body and the club and the forces and the motions and the torques and all that stuff, we understand that we couldn't go that way. We couldn't go with all the fluff because it didn't work. And then now we've got all this information. You don't have to tell everybody everything. You still
Hmm.
need some of that old. You still need some fluff. You know what I mean? I'm not telling you to make stuff up. I'm not saying to do whatever, but it's an art. It's art and it's science. There's a little bit of art. There's a little bit of science, and I've said this on one time, I'll say it a million times. At the end of the day, they're still gonna eat steak, their wife's still gonna love them, and they're still gonna go to the country club the next day. We are not solving the world's issues here. I mean, so while I am all for improving yourself and understanding, trying to get better and this and that, at the end of the day, don't forget, we're expendable, we're replaceable. Let me
Hmm.
tell you what, they fire me tomorrow, they'll bring in somebody else in, and those members won't care one way or the other. So if you think you're more important than because you do this or you teach that or you're this, that, and the other, you're not. You just need to understand that this is a people in people game, and it's an experience. If you can give them a good experience, yes, you want to have some knowledge behind it, but if you can give them a good experience with some knowledge, and they come away happy, and they come away with a better disposition on whatever it is that you help them with, you know what? You've won, and you've created, and you're a good teacher. You don't need a you know accolade behind your name to say that you're a good teacher, because we know that there's a million people that should be on the list that are not on the list. There's some people that are on the list that shouldn't be on the list. And there's people that have never even heard about the list that should be on it. You know what I mean? Whatever. But the bottom line is that there's the opportunity to learn, and we have a great environment with Facebook and Instagram and all the other things that I don't know about, but all the other social media stuff. There's an opportunity to learn. Just don't think there's only one way, and paint yourself in a corner without looking at everything out there. And then if you look at everything out there and you decide this is the way you want to be and this is the only thing you want to teach, I'm fine with that. But I want you to experience everything under the sun before you decide that going one direction is where you want to go.
As someone who has background in various, let's call it disciplines or theories or theses on teaching, you have educated in biomechanics and you have all these knowledge behind you, and you utilize the technology. How do you yourself differentiate between the feel and the tech when you're working with somebody?
Great question. I try to use the tech to teach the feels. And I try to use the tech only to notice trends. I don't care so much about, oh, the number has to be 3 or you can't play golf. It's just like saying, well, if you're not right here at the top, you can't be any good, because we all know there's outliers on either side. I think you just have to get yourself in a position where you can help them improve. And for me to buffer that information, that thing, and to use like TrackMan's a prime example. I might say, I want you to hit it a little bit higher because if they're hitting it too flat, they're not, not carrying the ball enough. I want you to hit it higher. How would you do that? I'd put the ball up in my stance. All right, let's
Mhm.
try it. Let's see what happens. They put it up in their stance and it does X, Y, or Z. I look at the technology. I go, it's either going higher, the same, or lower. Now I know. Okay, that didn't work, or that did work. Now I have an idea of what goes on. Now I said, now the next thing is, okay, we put the ball up in your stance and you seem to hit it higher. What do you feel when you do that? I feel my head staying more behind the golf ball. Fantastic. That's what you need to work on, as opposed to me spoon feeding them the answer immediately. I take away their ability to learn on their own. And as we all know, students learn best through self-discovery.
Mhm.
And so when they have that aha moment, it's the difference between knowing and understanding. If you know something, you can forget it, like you've crammed for a test and you forget it when it's gone. If you understand it, you never forget. So
Are you familiar with Chris Voss, the FBI negotiator? Now has the Black
yes,
Swan Group,
yes, sir.
and I've listened to him enough that his one story, and anyone that follows him will probably recognize this. You can stop me if you've heard it. But when he first wanted to be a negotiator, the head of that department, the lady said, "You need to go work a suicide hotline." So he did. And
Wow.
he comes up for his first evaluation, and his superiors, they're going to listen on this phone call. He thought he knocked it out of the park because he walked the guy off the ledge,
Right.
literally.
Literally.
And yeah, and then he hangs up and he's kind of beating his chest in his own head and looks at his supervisor and he says, "That's one of the worst uh, things I've ever seen done. I expected a lot more." And they blew him away. So I don't understand. I saved this guy. He said, "Exactly, you did." I mean, the person he was talking to has to own it themselves. In other
Uh,
words, they're not able to do it without you being there, is how you did it. So that's kind of, I think, was the genesis of him starting to learn to ask questions that allow the person to feel like they came up with the answer. Exactly what you were just describing is people have to learn it. What did that do for you? What did that feel like? Now they're saying it to you, which means they now own it. Tiger
right.
always talked about owning his swing, and I think that is an art that Will Woo and John Dunnigan are kind of are getting into as much as they can, and some
Yes.
other people.
Yeah.
Whether you're doing it already, and whether people do it already or not, it's like, why is this person accelerating and this person I can get their numbers spot on, but they're stuck at a 10. They can't get to 6, and this one was a 16, and now they're down to an 8. It's like just that little difference.
Yeah, and I think that goes along with, like we were talking about with the young kids, about the young teachers, about learning and having the experience on the less than the hours and doing that. I mean, there's no question that the next generation of teachers are going to know a hell of a lot more than I do. I
Mhm.
mean, and 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 I don't claim to be the best and the most knowledgeable. I mean, I'm talking about, when I say the next generation of teachers, I'm talking about all the guys that are doing all the research right now. They're going to know more than those guys, and which is fathomable to me, that you would know, you could know that much about the golf swing and the body. It just, I mean, some of the stuff that Michael Jacobs was doing and Brian Manziel are doing, and Nesbitt are just, and Quan. I mean, it's mind blowing, and then you take it to a guy like, who'd be a good example, Mark Blackburn, Rich Harmon, two guys that are supposed to be the best of the best when it comes to teaching. You know why they're so doggone good? Is because they know all that other stuff. They know how to take that little bit of carrot of information, like Harvey Pinnock was in, that one little pill, and go, you ever thought about, I don't know, hitting balls off a side hill lie, and tell me, and that's kind of what I want you to feel. And they go, ding, the light bulb goes off, or whatever they're talking about. Yeah, and that's why, Mark and Butch were so good, or are so good. I mean, there's from a bunch of different camps. There's two guys that teach a swing in a bunch of different ways. But
You know what
I think
I think of it is, and I started asking this to the people, and I think Rob Cheney was the first one I asked it to, and who there was somebody on I asked to recently as well. I don't know. James Seekman was on this week. I don't remember if I asked him or not. It kind of shows overlap, and I forget who I talked to, and ask what. Um, with all the different sciences out there, uh, and I'll relate it to the body. So somebody out there who might not be familiar with the terminology we might use to describe the swing, the human body has a number of different systems. Got the endocrine system, the vascular system, the neurological system, et cetera, et cetera. In the golf swing, you know, we obviously have geometry and physics being the big one. Now biomechanics has made a big push. But I asked coaches, I said, how do you determine which of these sciences takes precedence in anyone's particular swing at any given point in time? I
Great.
said, I think that is the next era. We have all these mountains of information that are now being siloed. It's like, okay, how do we take a little, how do you know whether to take a teaspoon or tablespoon from this silo? And how do you know whether to take a pinch or a tablespoon from this one?
Yeah, I think it comes down to motor learning and psychology. And clearly, if you've read any of Mike Hebron's stuff
Yes.
about learning and motor control and all that stuff, I mean, eh, I once again, there's another guy that was born way, way, way too early. You know, I mean, what that guy has figured out, I mean, some of his books that he wrote back in the day were amazing for the technology that he had. I mean, and now all the studies that he's done, you know, that's the whole thing. So I think that's where it's going. You're going to take, like you said, all this information and go, that's what you need.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you need. You need 2 scoops, and then you need 3, and you need just a
You need a cup.
yeah, you might as well take 2 weeks off and quit, you know?
But I mean, that was that was gonna be my master's thesis, because it was the Golf 360. It's under on my YouTube channel called The Golf Paradigm. I thought it was a cool name at the time. It obviously didn't catch on the way I'd hoped it to be, but it was golf being the overriding, let's say, discipline.
Right,
And then you had the yin and yang for me, which is my logo still to this day, was being in Hilton Head in particular. I saw this a lot more or less a retirement area. It's kind of shifted towards residential today, but it was, you have to improve, but you still have to have fun. I saw so many retirees that said, when I retire, I play 5 days a week, I'm going to get so much better. They'd work at it, wouldn't get better, and they get pissed. And then they hated golf, and then they quit. So I said, well, you have to have some balance in there between improvement and enjoying it. And then within those, and this was obviously based off the Chinese philosophy, you had the 5 elements, was, let's call it swing mechanics. You had the physical side, so training and stretching, mobility, and all those things, and health and diet. The clubs and the building and the physics of the club in motion versus static, the mental side. And then the most important, that I always called the thumb, because people used to say, which one of those is the most important? I said, probably the integration, which is what we're discussing, is what do you use, and which one does a person need in order for them to improve? And this easiest example of that is, if somebody, you're getting somebody's swing close to where they want it, where they're really improving and they're getting stronger in the gym. Now they're overrunning their clubs, meaning the shafts are not stiff enough. Okay, now, okay, well, the answer isn't go hit more balls and work on this more. It's, okay, let's look at the clubs, because maybe that shaft you're just overpowering, and
right.
balls floating and it's not flying where it should, because there's no face stability, because you don't have stability in the shaft. So that's kind of where that came from. And I just didn't want to write a book, so I started a podcast. It's been much more fun and easier, but it allows me to talk to guys like you and Sean Foley and Andrew Rice and Martin and Brian and, Lights, and then I get
Brilliant guys, every one of
Ben
'em.
Shear and Dr. Stu McGill and all these different people to hit on all these elements. And one I'll bring up real quick is, we were talking about, can someone do something versus can they not? I was very, very fortunate to spend a full day with Dr. Stu McGill. And that was, I couldn't believe he just met me. We've been back and forth in email a few times, but we were talking about facet joints, and he said he kind of classifies them basically into 3. You either have very limited mobility in your joints. That's your DNA. That's what your mom and dad gave you. You have medium, or you have wide. Wide meaning you can make as big a turn as you want to, and you're really not going to do a lot of damage. So if I think, knowing that, whether you send somebody to someone who can identify that, or you learn those things, how to identify that yourself by reading or reaching out to people like that. Because if you have somebody who has tight facets and you're trying to get them to make a big turn so they can pick up 20 yards, in a year or 2, that person might not even be playing golf anymore.
Exactly right. And that's a big, big, huge thing. And I can't say enough good things about Greg Rose and Dave Phillips and what they've done at TPI. And I know
Mhm.
that there's a lot of other entities doing a lot of the same research, but I mean, what they've done, and identifying the fact that, hey, look, you know, if you can't go like this with your arms, or you have poor external rotation, or you can't do X, Y, and Z, you're going to have an issue. And then the issues could be, you could do X, Y, or Z, you know, and That's the whole thing that I think that golf is missing right now is that integration of the physiology and the fundamentals. And I think that, you know, I think that golfer the big knock on all that is, well, my golfers aren't going to work out,
Mhm.
and if they're not going to work out, they're not going to change things. So I have to work around it. Yeah. Okay. I'll go with that argument to a point because I certainly have plenty of students that aren't going to work out that are, I mean, no matter what's going to happen, it's not going to happen. However, what I have noticed with technology is that when I show somebody, this is a classic when I have an older gentleman who wants to hit a little bit further, and they're a little resistant about doing the extra work that it might take in the gym to or the stretching or whatever to get to that next level. I say, okay, well, let's do this. Your average club head speed's 80 miles an hour, and you're hitting it X number of yards. I'm on TrackMan now. All right, we're going to assume perfect launch conditions. All right. I want you to swing. We're just going to look at one number. So we're not even going to worry about perfect launch conditions. We're going to look at one number. It's your club head speed. All right. Your average club head speed's 82 miles an hour. I want you to swing as hard as you can on this next one. I don't care if you fall out of your shoes. You know, I'm going to care where this ball's going. Knock yourself out. I'm going to give you 5 swings to get that number up as high as you can go. All right. And they go from 82 and it goes to 84 or whatever. I'm like, okay, that's it. That's all you got. That's all that's in the tank right now. For the way your fundamentals are and the way your body is, that's all that's left. Well, we can either, like we can either work on the power or we can work on the swing. And if I work on the swing, I'm only limited. I can't do what you're asking me to do. I can't give you 40 extra yards. It's not going to happen.
Mhm.
Now I can alter the clubs a little bit and I can give you a few more yards. I can play with the ball a little bit and maybe give you a couple more. So I might be able to give you 10 more yards, but this illusion or this false narrative that I can come in here and that you're going to hit it 40 yards further, it's not going to happen. You know what? I'd like to dunk it, but I'm not going to have it, you know. All right, I stole that from Mike Melizia. Thank you, Mike, for that one. That's a good. I like that one. But yeah, I'd like to dunk it, but it's not going to happen. So at a certain point, you have to either convince them that they need to work out and something needs to change, or they have to learn to be accepting of what the realities are of where they are. I mean, this is a prime example. I'm a prime example of this right now. As I said, I'm 54. I used to hit the ball probably 260, 270. Wasn't the longest, wasn't the
Mhm.
shortest, but that's pretty good for an average club pro, or average teaching pro, whatever. I now hit it about 250. It's coming down. Now, I am too lazy to go get in the gym and to go work on it. I'm too lazy to go hit balls and work on it. I've got too many other things that are more important to me than working on my golf game right now.
You got fish to spear.
I got fish to spear, exactly. I got food to eat. You don't get a belly like this without eating. So for me, I just have to learn to accept that I can't play the back tees anymore. And when the guys go back, it's so funny. All the kids at work are like, come on, let's go play. All right, that's fine. I'm playing one bump up. I'm a senior. But they call it the crying game. Oh, here comes Tom. He's crying because he can't hit his far. I'm like, no, I can't compete. I'm slugging 2 irons back here, and you guys are hitting wedges. But I think that what Dave and Greg have done with TPI is so amazing. And yes, you've got to tie in the physiology. You've got to tie in the fundamentals. You've got to tie in the psychology. You've got to tie in the clubs. You've got to tie all, and you've got to integrate all those things. Like you said, it's brilliant. And that integration, some people have the patience to integrate and some people don't. And I think that's the difference of where we are now. The integration phase, Homer called it the incubator. You put an idea in your mind, it bounces around the incubator, and it only comes out when it's that epiphany, that light bulb moment only comes out when you're ready. And I think that all too often in this day and age of instant gratification, people don't want to say that, wow, this is going to take a little bit of time. Look, if you're coming over the top of it and your path is 12 left and you're hitting down on it 7 down with your driver, you got some work to do, or you better enjoy hitting a big old, a big old bender, you know? So I think you take the technology to show them what they can and can't do, and then you let them make the decision. Okay, if it's me, I go, you know what? I'm too lazy to work out. I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to have to live with it at 240, 250, whatever. and knowing that when I'm a little bit older, I'm probably going to be the guy that's not going to hit it very far unless I change my attitude about working out and I get strong in the gym, a la TPI, and couldn't agree with him more. So, I think that's kind of where we are.
I think that as we were talking about the younger generation, because I think, and Jeff Smith and I talked about this, I think that our era, anyone in their 50s, let's say 50 and above,
Right.
that's in coaching, grew up without any technology at all. You had to learn the hard way. You had to go out there all the time and just get through it and learn every single day, learn something new, or just keep teaching until you get better, make mistakes, get better, read,
100%.
go talk to somebody, etc. I think the kids today who are coming up with only technology are utilizing it, but they see, if they see you in a lesson, or they see Scott Calx in a lesson, or any of the great list of teachers that is, top 100 or top 50 or whatever list someone wants to pick, and they hear a podcast or they see you do a video, and you have technology, and they think, oh, look at all these great teachers are using technology. But they don't understand that most, talking to Scott when he was on, obviously he's a big hack motion guy, does a lot of work with them, but he said, I'll use the tech when they come in, right when they start, so we can see where they are. Then I'll put it to the side and use the skill I've developed over 30 plus years. And then I will check them again at the end to see what type of advancement or regression they've made, so that we know what to do. I know how to send them on their way and what to work on. But I
Exactly.
think some of these kids on, as you said, social media and the instant gratification, see, God, Tom Stickney's using TrackMan, he's using Force Play. I got to go use them. It's like, no, they're not. Tom's not using it the entire lesson. He's not sitting there looking at no, he's looking at the student and
Right.
checking. Okay, let's go back over here and hit balls. Now, okay, let's well, I want to check one more thing. Okay, I'm good. I don't think the younger generation understands that. At least it doesn't appear to be so.
No, and I don't think they do, and I think that goes back to the classes in motor learning and psychology and all this stuff. I was an exercise science major in college, and I wanted to be a psych major, so I took a lot of psychology classes until the labs got in the way of golf practice, blah blah blah. But it was interesting because I was exposed to two things that were incredibly beneficial to my career. Now, I'm not an expert in either one of them. Don't get me wrong, but I at least had some ideas that, wow, you know what? There's more to, than this, than I got to talk Mr. Haverkamp different because he's a quadruple type A versus his wife, who's a type B, and could care less about being there,
Hmm.
or how am I gonna deal with this person that wants instant gratification versus this person that's as patient as Joe. It's totally different, and that's the crux of what you learn when you go shadow a teacher. Sure, when you go watch Tony Ruggiero teach, he's great about letting people come in and mentoring those kids as they come up. Um, and you look at that, but you watch him, you're learning how to use technology, how to use psychology, how to use physiology, and how to integrate. Like you said, how to put it all together. So
Hmm.
the bottom line when they leave is they go, okay, Tony said oh, okay, I flex my knees and I get it to the top right here. That's it. Not a laundry list of super technical things. Now, I'm not saying that certain things aren't a little bit more technical in nature that you have to explain a little bit differently, but for the most part, when you come out of a lesson, you should be reasonably successful at hitting a couple good shots. You should understand what you did, what you were doing, what you are doing, and what the feeling is different between those. And you should have the ability to understand the ability of how to practice when you get out there alone. I'm not barking at you. So that's what the kids are missing right now, but they're gonna get it, and they're gonna be better than we are, and I have
Hmm.
no doubts that it's gonna be the profession now is in a better shape than where it was when I first started. But I'm always available to talk to or shadow or whatever. For me, I've always been open. Look, if I knew everything, I'd be the first. So you know what? I try to listen, I try to expose, and I try to you know, learn as much as I can as well. So I think as we continue on with the social media, with all that stuff, you're starting to see more transparency in how everything is done. And then you're going to look at a guy like Sean Foley and you're going to say, why is that guy so good? How come he only teaches tour players or
Hmm.
teaches mostly tour players? Well, because he probably knows how to communicate with them a little bit better than you do. Well, I know just as much as Sean Foley. Blah, 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 blah. No, you don't. You might know
Yeah.
fundamentally as much as he knows. Let's just assume that maybe that's true, maybe it's not. Let's just assume it is. You don't know squat about how to deal with that personality or this personality or that personality. And that's why certain guys are great at certain levels.
Mhm.
I'm, I'm the first to admit I don't like teaching tour players. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. I don't like the travel. I don't like the pressure that comes with it. I don't want to teach 800 tour players. Now, have I taught tour players? Yes, I've taught tour players. Have I been successful with tour players? Yes. But do I enjoy it? No, because I don't want to affect somebody's living. It's just too much anxiety for me, whereas Sean Foley probably couldn't get out of bed to go do a bunker clinic like I did, this afternoon with, a couple 40 and 50 handicappers. And that's the truth. That was a 40 and 50 handicapper. Look, I bombed off of the bunker.
I think that mentality goes across most things in coaching. Coach Tom Moore, who was Peyton Manning's offensive coordinator at Indianapolis forever, he lived here in Belfair, and my brother worked there back then. And so he had us down for a Monday night game when the Colts played Jacksonville. And we got there 3 hours before the game, so we're on the field with them just shooting the
Cool.
breeze, and well, it was until, I think I was 40 at the time, my brother was mid-30s, and I'm looking around at I mean, you look at NFL and you think they're men, and they are men, but when you're 40 and you're on the field and these guys are 22, 24, like, wait a second, these guys are kids compared to, or I'm old, or a
Yeah.
combination of both. But, I had asked him, because he had coached at Louisville at one time, or early in his career, and I said, "What was it that made you go to the pros and then be successful at that level as opposed to college?" And he said, "I didn't want to have to be somebody's mother and get them out of bed to get to practice. In the pros, they just fire them. You're cut. Get out." And I remember hearing Phil Jackson something similar. You're spot on, at least in my opinion, that certain people have a knack, or their skill level is dialed in for a certain segment. And as you said, Sean can relate in some way, shape, or form to that stable of tour pros that he has. If somebody might know the X's and O's more than him, we'll just say that someone does. But Sean knows how to work in that realm, in that
100%.
environment, where someone else, as we've been talking about, the clinical, working in the clinic, meaning out on the range, and the back and forth, and getting people to understand the message and how to get that message across and so on, that they might not have that. They have the X's and O's, but they can't get that across a tour pro.
It's tough. I mean, I'll never forget. I was teaching a guy by the name of Don Reese. He played on the tour, on and off the tour for a while when I first got to Sandestin, and I was trying to put him in some backswing position or whatever it was. And he goes, "Yeah, I know that looks better on camera, but I can't play from there." And it blew my mind. I'm like, "What do you mean you can't play from there?" "Well, I can't. If I have the club here, it pulls in that one miss that I don't like." And I didn't understand at the time, and I was just like, "Well, that doesn't make any sense to me. It's better on camera. It should be better in reality." But, you just learn certain nuances of the people you teach, and I have all the respect in the world for all the coaches that are at every level from, you look at some of these guys. I mean, look at Rob Cheney, and look at Plummer, and try teaching stack and tilt to a 60-year-old lady. You know, that's tough, but they
Mhm.
do it, and they do it well. Okay, look at, James Lights teaching that same 60-year-old lady, with TrackMan and force plates and this and that. It's tough, but he can do it.
He's gonna look around and say, "Are you launching a rocket ship out of this place with
Yeah,
all this
that
technology?"
is the functive building, exactly. He's but, I guess the bottom line for me is that, you know and my mother used to say this, it's so funny. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them accordingly, and I heard that, and then my girlfriend's in there going, "Hmm, I heard that." Whatever.
As long
And
as you listen to that.
I'm not very good at not running my mouth, obviously, as this podcast is going on. I think more than anything else, if you just take the time to listen to what other people are saying, you might learn something. And you know what? I might disagree with X, Y, or Z, or disagree with the other side of the equation, but you know what? I'm gonna learn a hell of a lot from listening to the hot argument of right now is Stack and Tilt versus AMG. I'm gonna learn a heck of a lot from Sean and Mike, and I'm gonna learn a heck of a lot from Andy and Rob and his crew. And you know what? I'm going to take bits and pieces from each of them, and I'm going to take them out to my lesson tee, and I'm going to be a better teacher because of it. So I thank each side for being so adamant about what they're doing to want to share their knowledge, because let me tell you, they could very easily take it and then put it in their back pocket and never say a word about it. And the
Yeah,
golf
exactly.
business would be worse off for it. Now, do I really care who's right or who's wrong? No, I'm just, that's between them. I'm all for, being the middle party that everybody neutral. I don't care. I just want to learn.
What
And,
what
and so,
what I didn't mean to cut you off. Go
no,
ahead.
no, but I just want to learn.
What I have learned in most instances is when people are at odds, usually on an idea or a theory, and you could take those two. You could take the short game debate. You could take
Yeah.
the alpha war, etc. It's usually they're both right from a different perspective. So, and here's the example I use, and I think this was right. I never gave it the full test to run hundreds of people through it. But you remember that the one when we were younger, it was the straight back and straight through versus the arc stroke.
Oh, yeah.
That was the
That
debate
was
of
the
the
big,
day.
huge debate.
And it they said, well, if you look at this from down the line, and the putter does this, and it says, well, look at it from up above, and it does this, and they didn't match. One looked like a in plane stroke or whatever. And I said, has anybody measured it or put the camera angle on the same angle of the shaft and look down at it that way, because it will give a third perspective. Because both of you are right, but if you look at it from the third perspective, it does both simultaneously. So I always say to these guys, maybe you're both right and you're just looking at it from different perspectives or at different points in time.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and I know all those guys, and Joe, and Parker, and all the guys in those debates, and they all mean well. They're all trying to advance the game. I mean, you open up, I'll guarantee you take Parker McLaughlin and you open up his heart and you say, you put him on, or rather put him on a polygraph. You say, are you trying to make people better? Yes, I am. Can you pass the mirror? Same thing with Joe. Coming at it from two different directions. Who cares? I mean, who really cares? At the end of the day, like I said, it's just golf. We're not launching the shuttle. Yes, we want to get people, but we want to make people better, and there are different ways to do it. But the bottom line is they're both trying their damnedest to do what they think is right. And you know what? If they can pass the mirror test, and then they're doing what they should do.
My theory from watching it from afar is EA has known Parker, I guess, for quite a long time, since Parker was a young kid. And he said Parker's always been shallow in his game, in his everything in his swing has been shallow his entire
Right.
life. Not saying that's bad. He's saying that's just
That's just his mojo.
his DNA. Joe's guy that brought him to prominence, I think, as the short game guy was Victor Hovland, and because what he did with Victor was phenomenal. Victor was really struggling at a tour level. He was one of the worst chippers on the tour for the skill level that he had. And then he
100%.
turns it around and he does some great things. At least in my opinion, I think Victor is steep on the ball.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, that would make sense that Victor would do well under Joe's theory. And it would make sense that someone who's much more shallow would do
Sure.
well under Parker's theory. But if you crossed them, you're going to short circuit. You can short circuit that person. I'm sure both of them, if they hear this, they might say, no, I've taken shallow and I've made them steep. And Parker could say, I've taken steep, made them shallow, and they've done
Yeah.
good. We're talking for the most part, if you cross patterns in someone's swing and their short game movement, and James and I, Seekman, talked about this. He gave the story of working with Charlie Hoffman, where he changed some things in his short game and it bled over into his full swing. And he said he was lucky I had the right team to work with on the swing side, that we massaged it in, and it worked out good for Charlie.
Yeah.
But
Well, Homer talks about that, but using the same stroke pattern for long strokes, medium strokes, and short strokes. And so it's the same sort of deal. If you're trending one way, you're probably trending that way in your short game, like you said. And like I said, I just want to learn, and I try to stay as neutral as possible and try to glean as much information as I can from each of those camps, and whatever camp it is, whether it's steep versus shallow, or pitching wars, or banking the right foot or versus lifting. Whatever. Maybe I'm too flippant in the aspect that I'm like, it's just golf. I maybe I should take it more seriously. But I'm just like people. It's a game. Yes, we want to be better. Yes, we want to try our best, but it's a game at the end of the day. It's not life. It's not the end of the world. Now, I'm not talking about if you only teach tour players. Totally different. That's how they make their living. Now, all of a sudden, your information better be spot on, and it better be the right thing for the right person. and all the information in general better be right, or you're going to affect somebody's ability to make a living. And it takes a special breed, and there's only a few tour players. There's only a few tour teachers as well that are truly competent at working across that board and not fouling people up and having the ability. It was funny. I was talking to Chris Como at the PGA show last year, and he was talking about a particular pro that wanted to come under his stable. And I said, well, let me get your stats and let me get back to you. Now you would think and this was a pretty big name player, you would think that if that big name player had come to anybody on that's teaching on tour and said, hey, I'd like to work with the guy, I said, okay, that's 4% right in my pocket right there.
Mm-hmm.
But he was like, no, let me do some research on your game. Let me pull your stats. Let me look at it. So he pulls his stats and all the different things. And he said, you know what? I can't help you. I was like, what do you mean you can't help me? He said, you know what? I'm not the right guy for you. But I tell you what I've done, looked at your information. I know who is the right guy for you. Let me make a couple phone calls. And that takes a unique person to be able to A, coach at that level, and B, to know when to do the right thing. And that was the right thing to do in that instance. And that particular player did go with somebody else and has been very successful since. And you could and Chris was smart enough to realize that he wasn't the right fit for that particular player.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't because Chris isn't smart, wasn't because Chris couldn't teach, wasn't because Chris wasn't very good at his job. Chris recognized that for something was it, there was a flaw in the ointment, a fly in the ointment. And that's pretty amazing. And so, like I think that every teacher has the ability to teach at certain levels, but there's only a few good teachers at a bunch of different levels.
I'm sure Chris at some point learned that very hard lesson to be able to
I'm
know that it's
sure.
not worth me messing this person up, and then that also hurting his reputation as well. They only worked together a short time. It didn't work out. You have worked with tour pros and you work with 50 handicaps. What is the difference between working with both? It might seem obvious, but for someone out there that's not a coach and is listening to this, or is a young coach and is curious, in your opinion, as somebody who's experienced both, how does maybe I should phrase it like this: how is your approach different from one to the other?
Well, the whole thing, the biggest difference to simplify it, is tour pros can do anything you ask them to do. They know where they are in three-dimensional space, and they can feel their way around the golf swing in a million, anything you ask them to do, and they can figure out a way to put the club on the ball and, let's face in the path and the impact point, and they can control that better than most. And the ball goes in a tighter dispersion than it does for other people. That's it. But a tour pro has the wherewithal, has the internal focus to be able to understand where their club is for the most part and go, okay, you told me to have my left wrist like this, and I have it like this. So when I take it back, okay, I feel all right, I got it. All right, so let me hit a couple shots. Bang, 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 bang. Oops, one went that way. Bang, bang, bang. Oops, one went that way. They can do that. Where Mrs. Haverkamp, she's lucky she's walking and chewing gum at the same time. And I'm not picking on ladies or Mr. Haverkamp for that matter. But look, I only have so much coordination. All right. And I have a certain amount of coordination, and Mr. and Miss Haverkamp have their coordination levels. And that doesn't mean that I might be able to feel things differently. They might be able to feel things differently. But the bottom line is that coordination and internal introspection, so to speak, of how your articulation, how you're moving.
Yeah, the proprioception of their bodies in
Proprioception.
space.
That's the word I'm searching for. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, they can feel it, whereas amateurs can't. I say, well, work the club around your body, put it on your toe line at bell high. And they go, is this it? And you go, what? No, I said, I grab their hand. No, it's right here. Can you see it's right here? Okay, I got it. I got it. And you're like, are you kidding me? Are you yanking my chain? There's no way that could feel anything like what I just did. And then you show them a video, goes, oh my God, I thought I was taking around my body. And you're like, no parts, you got a long way to go. But that's the difference. And tour pros can do anything you ask them, and they can manipulate themselves in ways. And they are machines. They are just machines in hitting the ball, delivering the club in the right positions where they can have predictable ball flight for the most part. Whereas amateurs have no idea. They don't know where the club's flying all over the place. The body's flying all over the place. they're not syncing up.
From when I was playing, and I would have friends that would say, you know, "God, you hit it so good, and but why aren't you on the Ryder Cup team?" Right? I said, you gotta understand that there's a very, very high skill level when you get to that level, and the margins are so small that if I went for a lesson, and I would use a similar example, I said, I can adjust, I can start to hit it good, but if I the margins, meaning if I miss a shot at the wrong time and I'm plugged in the bunker, or I'm in the bunker on short side and I don't get up and down, and let's say I flush one, the next one it goes long, and I'm in a thick rough and don't get up and down. I just lost 2 shots, and that's the difference in making the cut, not making the cut.
Exactly right.
And I said, so that's why I had to explain to buddies that margin is so small that it's developed over years and decades of playing when you're a kid and playing it in junior golf, and you're just playing and playing and playing and hitting balls and balls and balls. And you're just that much more adept. Like I think the other one I used to use is, an acrobat in a circus. Their core strength is off the charts.
Mhm.
Because they've usually the families, at least it used to be in a circus, we're talking about circus and old guys and talking about things that aren't around anymore. But yes, circus, it used to be families, that the whole family, if they had kids, and the kids would come up into the acrobats, and
Yeah.
it was just generational, and they did that their whole life. So it was developed, and you look at it and say, God, how can he do that? Well, he's been doing it for 25 years, and that's what happens.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that, Charlie along, like I was telling you, the guy that taught me the golfing machine or helped me with the golfing machine said the most interesting thing. He said, if I let you hit it like Hogan tomorrow, dating ourselves now, if I let you hit it like Hogan tomorrow, would you shoot the scores that Hogan shot? I said, of course I would. He says, no, you wouldn't, because you don't think like Hogan. You don't have the emotions of Hogan. And I went, okay, that's probably right. And so it is amazing. I mean, how many guys have you seen on the range that just, I mean, one after another. When I grew up, we had the tour tournament was in Memphis, and it was always the last week in July and the first week, the first part of August. All right. And the next week was Kingsmill, which was Curtis Strange's event. So anybody with any status skipped Memphis because it was too hot and it was too whatever, and they went to Curtis's event. So we got a lot of back in the day, long before FedEx got involved, but we would get all the journeymen,
Hmm.
all the rabbits, all the journeymen, all the guys who are struggling to keep their card, or the old timers that were, that before the senior tour was around. And you walk by, and I'll never forget, I walk by a guy by the name of Bert Yancey, and I'm watching him hit balls, and I'm like, my God, this guy
Bert
hadn't
was
hit.
the head pro here for a while at
Oh, was he
Seapine before
really?
I got
Yeah.
here. Yes.
I was sitting there watching him fill up the hole from 120 yards, and I'm thinking, how is this guy not winning every week? And then, you're watching this guy or that guy. And the bottom line is there's a lot that goes into being a great player other than hitting the ball. Hit the ball is probably the easiest part, you know, from moving it from point A to point B. I don't know. It's a tough game. And the older I get in instruction, professionally, the more I start to realize, man, it's really, really, really difficult. And it takes a lot of time and effort, and it takes a lot of patience, and it's a very tough sport. But if you take the time to master it, it'll gives it back to you, tenfold. I look back at what golf has given me, and I go, are you kidding me? I could have been stuck in an office doing data entry, something that with my personality would have driven me nuts and I'd have made a hell of a lot more money, but I couldn't do it.
Mhm.
I got a chance to travel the world, see the, different countries, and do this and that. And all the while I've dodged a real job for, 33, 34 years, I mean, I still make golf balls curve. It's not the most important thing in the world, but it does make some people happy. And so, I just say, thank you, good Lord, for giving me an opportunity to be able to do this. And that there are people out there that are smarter than me that want to share their information with me, because I certainly don't know everything. If I did, I'd be the first.
If we took from high handicap to mid, and mid to single, single to scratch, scratch to elite amateur, let's say college, and then that to pro. Do you see common denominators that separates each one? If you can if it was, is it something simple? Like you said when you heard the fella talk about the swing for the first time, or we talked about it earlier,
Well, yeah, I think
or is it something that's more of a you got to do different things. It's just in different orders, maybe.
I think it just boils down to athleticism. I really do. I either think you have it or you don't. And I think you can massage it a little bit, and you can massage it a little bit with a little bit of work. You can get a lot better, but it's going to take a whole bunch of work. But I don't think you can take yourself. Very few people can take themselves from average to great.
Hmm.
You usually get stuck along the way. You usually get tired of the process along the way. You know what I mean? Because you're not getting paid for it. It doesn't really matter if you shoot 75 or 85. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if you're going to the country club every day. Yeah, you'd want to shoot 75, but for the most part, you know, no one's going to look at you crossways if you shoot 75 to 85. You're beating most of your buddies, and you're doing all right.
Right.
So I think it boils down to athleticism, and then the ability to just put up with all the BS that comes along with trying to get better. Hitting balls, chipping and putting, working on your swing, being uncomfortable, playing like crap, getting better, and then trusting in the tournament. It just takes time. And that's the one thing that people don't, as we've matured and maturated as a society in more instant gratificational ways, we don't see that patience. I don't see that patience anymore from students. And aside from, some students, most of
I
them.
think it's Tony Robbins' famous quote is most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 5. They're so focused on trying to do it, and then they burn themselves out. I'm a big fan of Pavel Tsatsouline, the Russian trainer that trained the special forces, and I had to learn this the hard way as we talk about experience and getting older. Is getting back in the gym because I had some health issues for a few years, but getting back, I wanted to thought I was still in my 30s, and I can push it, and after a couple months, I'm like, why am I have no energy? I'm supposed to have more. It's like, well, you're pushing it too hard, dumbass.
Yeah.
No, it's like get a get do 70% on a regular basis, and at the end of 3 months, you're going to be stronger than you were, and at 6 months, you'll be stronger. Don't do things where you're going to burn yourself out.
Yeah.
And to your point of the dopamine addiction in today's world does not lend itself to people taking their time.
Yeah, it's tough. And look, I'm so glad I grew up in the era I did without cell phones, and the biggest push in college was running back to your dorm to see, look at check your message on your answer machine, see if the girl you called you back. And you're like, "Hi, this is mom." Delete. "Hi, this is dad." Delete. Did Sarah call? Okay, great, everything's fine. But it just takes time, and most people don't have the time, and I think that's why I enjoy teaching the the average golfer so much is I don't have that much time to practice my game and play as much as I'd like because I'm so busy on the lesson tee. So I kind of understand where they're coming from, when, the guy says, "Look, I got a trial that's going to come up, and that's going to be a 2 week deal. I won't be able to touch a club for 2 weeks. And, or, now I've got surgery on Friday. I can't get out, or what have you. It just takes time. You just got to just take your time and have fun with it. As at the end of the day, like I said, it's just a game. It's an expensive game, but it's just a game.
You know what my favorite is guys to teach is right around that 12 handicap
Mhm.
because and even if they've gotten down to 10 or even they hit single digits because in our area they're mostly retired and or they're very close to it and they've been playing golf long enough and they were good enough athletes that playing let's say once maybe twice a week they've gotten down to that level, but they've also researched and studied YouTube and books and everything else enough
Mhm.
that they know what to do, but it's usually I have found out that it's something simple in their swing that they can make the adaptation, maybe because to your point, they were athletes, but also their wedge game. And I'll ask them, how far do you hit your half wedge? And how far do you hit your half gap and a half 56? And if the first word out of their mouth is about, I know that they've got a big hole that needs to be filled. That they don't have a distance control game with their wedges, and their short game might be okay, but that gap between let's say 110 is huge, and usually from the tees they're playing from, that's a big area, and if they're not making one birdie around at least, they're never going to get down to scratch or not
No.
scratch, but single digit.
It's gonna take some time, and they better be really good at bogey avoidance, and they better talk call Scott Fawcett and start looking at decade. They need to know where how
Yes.
to aim.
Yes, exactly. You've been at the forefront of modern instruction, but you also have evolved. How do you pick and choose with all the stuff that's coming at you from a million different directions, as we've been discussing in today's society, what to focus on and improve on and not get distracted by all these things that are coming your way simultaneously.
You mean with the student? How do I choose what
Well, like, how do you choose what to like? If you're going to pick something that you want to get better at, like you did the social media, you jumped into
Right,
you
right,
hire
right,
somebody to do that. How do you pick of all the different things that you have an option for? Let's just say there's 20 or 50 of them.
right,
How do you determine? Because everyone's getting bombarded from a million different directions in today's world, whether they're in sales or they're in corporate world or they're an assistant or whatever they're doing, they're getting tons and tons of information on a regular basis. How do you stay focused, not only doing, helping your day to day things that you do, but also how do you decide what you're going to go tackle
right.
so that that can continue to learn? Because everyone has said, Tom's a lifelong learner. And if somebody is listening to this episode, they're going to pick that up as well. So I think a lot of people like to ask you, how do you determine what you're going to learn next?
Introspection, introspection, introspection. You just have to pay attention. You have to be honest with yourself and look inside yourself and say, what am I good at? What am I not so good at? And quite frankly, what can I do? What can I improve? What can I not improve? All right. If you take me for an example, all right, I'm very hyper, I'm very up key, very up energy. It's very difficult for me to, you know, to slow down, or it's harder for me to slow down and be, in a place where, hello, Mr. and Miss Johnson, how are you? I don't work in that well. I don't work well in that environment. And so for me, I go, okay, you know what? If I want to go teach at Baltusrol, let's say, or Pine Valley or Augusta, and I need that personality, I either have to change something about myself, or, what, I'm not the right fit. And so there's things you can modify, but telling me that to be a type B is not going to happen. Telling me to be laid back is not going to happen. It's just the way I'm geared. And so for me, I think I have to look at what I do well, what I do crappy, and ask the students, you've taken a bunch of lessons from me. What can I do better at? And they go, you know what, you're really good, but you talk too fast, or you walk around too much, or or you're whatever, you know. And so then you go, or your communication style, you teach everybody, verbally instead of visually, or instead of kinesthetically, or whatever. So you just have to listen to what you have to be introspective of what you say, and then you have to ask your students, and that's a hard reality. That sucks. There's nothing worse than
Mhm.
having criticism. Nobody likes to hear constructive criticism. Everybody likes to think that they're perfect all the time.
Especially when you're comfortable where you are.
100%. I mean,
You get addicted to that comfort.
yeah, exactly. You're supposed to know what you're doing, and you know, and honestly, especially as you get better at your chosen profession, I have certain accolades, I have certain experiences, I have certain number of lessons, I have certain number of years under my belt. So I'm supposed to know something, whatever that something is. I don't know where that is on the scale, and it's irrelevant, but I'm supposed to know a little bit. I need to get better at making sure that that little bit goes up every year.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's, Tom, you need to focus in on your communication style. Sometimes, Tom, you need to focus in on the back office stuff. And sometimes, Tom, you need to focus in on this. You just have to be very aware and ask your students questions about, especially the students that are close to you, about, hey, what can I do better at? And you know what? It stinks to hear it, but you know what? Every time you hear it and you go, you know what? I probably need to pay attention to that. So that's how I do it. I try to just be, a little bit more observant to myself than I probably other people would be.
But would you say that's what makes you good at what you do, or would it be something else?
I think I have a passion for what I do. And because of that passion, I will do anything and everything it takes to get better, whatever that might be, even if it causes discomfort or hurt feelings in my world. There's nothing, I have absolutely nothing wrong with, and I do this all the time with Brian Manzella and James Lights. I'll call them and I'll say, oh, I've got this. I did this. There, you're wrong. And you go, oh shit. You know, you're right. I should have done it this way. And they're not that blunt about it, but they might say, hey, have you ever thought about doing this? And you go, oh, that did or I didn't. And so you just can't. look, it's just golf. You can be wrong and you can say, there's plenty of times I've gone into a student and said, you know what, I've been taking us down the wrong path. I had this idea, and what, this idea just hadn't quite panned out the way we want. So let's change directions. You know what? It's okay for a doctor to change directions when he's working
Mhm.
with your blood pressure, but it's not okay for a golf teacher to change directions. That's asinine. You
Yeah,
know?
we are human. You make mistakes. It's gonna happen.
Yeah,
If you
no
don't
doubt.
think so, then good luck. Good
Yeah,
luck in this
exactly.
business.
No, you won't have any fun.
The biggest lesson you learned from the game of golf.
Try your best to do what's right. There was a guy that used to work for TaylorMade, Tim Hewitt, great friend of mine, and he had a saying, just do what's right. If you do what's right, you won't have any problem. And that's really what it boils down to. Just do the right things. And when you look in the mirror, you know what the right things are. Take your emotions out of the equation. When you look into your eyes, you know what the right thing is. And that if you could do that most of the time, that's what golf has taught me, is to try to do the right thing as best I can, and try to be as nice as I can to everybody. You know what? We're here too short. Why, because I am so lucky to teach golf, that I should be looked down on somebody, or why, because I happen to make a living of X, should I look down on somebody else? Give me a break. Just be a nice person. So that's what golf has taught me.
Yeah, it's very, very good stuff. If you could sit down with your 20, 25-year-old self, have a cup of coffee or a beer, what would you tell the younger Tom if you could give him some sage advice?
First of all, I tell him to stay away from alcohol. That was a that was a effort in futility there for a while with the alcoholism. But so those of you who are struggling with drinking, I'll tell you, life is better on the other side if you fight that demon. That's for sure, and it is possible to be over that, and I'm living proof of that. I would tell my younger self, A, stay away from alcohol, and then B, I would say, just just slow down and smell the roses just a little bit. That doesn't mean don't work as hard. That doesn't mean take weekends off. You have to work and you have to be, but if you're going to be in this profession, you better have a passion for it. And you better enjoy working. I love to get up and go to work every day. And I love to work early in the morning till late at night. I was at work at 6:30 this morning, and I'm still doing it. What is it, 8:28 right now? And it's great. I've had more fun today than I had if I was making 10 times as much.
Mhm.
So you just have to have a passion for it, and then you just have to take the time to smell the roses. Just a second. I wasn't very good at that. I didn't have very good life balance for a long,
I
long.
don't well, I think you're in the overwhelming majority on that one. Because I would probably say the same thing to myself going back 30 some years ago. Another one be take your time and be patient.
Yeah,
Don't be so anxious to take on the world.
exactly. There's plenty of time to do that. You know,
Mhm.
you got all your life to work, so you better enjoy it.
Yeah. Yes. No, I don't think anyone on their deathbed ever said, "Man, I wish I would have spent more time at the office."
Exactly.
God, if I could go back and just do one more thing, I'd spend
Man,
another.
if I could just do one more spreadsheet.
You ready to do a little emergency 9 and I get you relaxed so you can go chill out and watch some television
That
tonight?
sounds great. That
All
sounds
right.
great.
Hard to believe. I mean, I'm looking at the timer. It's hard to believe we're coming up on 2 hours. I told you marathon session. I didn't realize we'd blow through it so quickly.
Oh, it's fun. It's been a blast. And I can't thank you enough for having me on. It's been an
Yes, it's
honor and
been
a
great.
pleasure. And like I said, I just hope that somebody listens to this and learns a little bit and takes the carrot of knowledge and realizes that we don't have to be combative. We don't have to be. We can have a beer together or a Diet Coke together, and we can all put our arms around each other and say, "Hey, look, we're all doing it for the common good of the game." And you know what? I like you. You're not a bad guy after all.
Yes. I think James Seekman said the other day when we were talking about psychology of golf, because he's written 3 books on it. His question was, he asked people when they're trying to get through their bad time, he said, why did you start playing golf? What attracted you and why did you stay with it? Because I gave that some thought in the last couple of days, that when you first start, you're terrible, but you keep coming back over and over and over and over again. And I'm thinking to myself, why would somebody go back to something they were so bad at? That there has to be something inside them that just, whether it's the challenge or whatever the challenge that golf presents, is that the individual just seems to find some joy in that or pursuit of something. But I thought it was, again, another so simple of a question to get somebody to, out of the way they're thinking whether they're in a slump or in a bad position in their game or their life or whatever, and just redirect it and say, why did you start this in the first place?
Yep.
And it's like,
Yeah, James is a smart guy.
yes,
He's more Pinnock-esque than a lot of people give him credit for. I mean, James, if you know James, he's a man of few words when he's teaching, because he knows his stuff is powerful. You know what I mean? He'll say a few things and you'll go, okay, yeah, that's it. I got it. Well, it took James, 2 sentences. 2 sentences, it took me 2 paragraphs. So that's what I'm trying to get. I'm trying to be more like James.
he's a good one to aspire to be. And I told him he's got to come back on. We'll have a
Yeah.
whole podcast on stories with James Seekman
No, he's
from
great. He's a
the
good
tour
egg.
stuff. All right, let's jump in. First and last one everybody gets. Everything else in between, I've changed up over time, but it kind of is a lot of fun to do this at the end. So,
Okay.
walk-up song, whether you're going to make it in the Ryder Cup, you're going to well, there's no more Monday qualifying, but
I was
somehow
gonna
you get
say,
in Ryder, or let's say you're playing in a member guest and they're cranking some music.
cranking
What
some
do you,
music. That's great.
what,
Oh, it'd have to be something by Kiss.
okay.
Detroit Rock City. I think I'd have to go back to Detroit Rock City with Kiss player. And so long live Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, Ace Frehley,
Yes.
and Peter Criss. My
And growing up
boys.
in Detroit, I'm very partial to your answer there. Hollywood comes a calling. Say, Tom, we've watched your career from afar, and we're really impressed with it, and we think it would make a great movie. And not only that, but we're going to let you pick the actor that plays you.
The
Who are
guy
you
who
going to
played
have?
the guy who played Uncle Fester. He'd be perfect.
All right, your
That's why I have to
favorite.
have this beard, because I look like a fat bald baby when I don't have my beard. I just shaved it too, and I'm looking at myself and I'm going, God, I look so fat.
It does when you shave, man. It makes you look
Oh,
like you
it's
packed them up.
terrible.
That's how I grow it. I make myself look thinner.
Yep, I grow it out and then I shave it on the first one and then I'll let it go. All right, I'm sorry. Continue.
You're good. Favorite purchase under $1,000 could be something around the house, could be a training aid, could be just something that you really enjoy. Bottle of
I think
bourbon, I
those.
don't know, whatever it is. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say it. I didn't know
No,
about
no, no.
your past drinking.
Those the Meta glasses are the funniest thing. I have no idea
Really?
why they're so intriguing. And it's not to do anything but just stupid stuff. I mean, stuff that I don't put it out for anybody to watch, but I hit some balls and I was like, that's so cool. And then I was fishing and I was like, oh, that's, I don't know. It's just, I thought they were pretty interesting.
I did see your Instagram post on that, and I'm like, to me, I'm like, are those really glasses, or does he have like a GoPro on the brim of his hat?
No, it was,
That was pretty cool.
you thank Danielle for that. That's her expertise. Yeah. She came up with that. She's also the one that was in the ghost costume that was swinging on the last post, which I thought was hysterical. I mean, that's how much she takes it to the next level. She's ready to get a ghost costume and swing when it's 200 degrees outside down here in Florida.
Jeez, all the power to her on that.
Yeah,
Man.
exactly.
If you could give a lesson to any historical figure, celebrity, or golfer, who would it be? Anybody you wanted to.
Oh, it'd have to be. Well, let's go back. It'd have to be Greg Norman in 1986,
Oof.
where he led the 4 majors going into the final round. Probably the closest anybody's come to to winning the majors in the calendar year.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously Tiger did his Tiger Slam. I think if he'd have stayed healthy, he might have done it 10 times. But it would have to be Greg Norman 86 because that was the most eye-opening, dominant thing back in the day that I remember as a kid.
Yeah, I just remember thinking, God, this guy's leading again. Like I would fall. I wasn't into golf. I was into other sports, but I'd played golf in the summer. I'm thinking, this guy leads every major. But then by the time he lost the 4th one, I go, how do you lose all 4? I mean, I just felt bad for him and not even knowing the dynamics of the situation.
Yeah, had a little bad luck there.
What is worse, iron covers on somebody's golf clubs or a well done steak?
Oh, it has to be iron covers. What a pain in the ass to play with somebody with iron covers, because they have to take them on and they have to clean their club and they put them back on. And, I get it. And like Aaron Rye does it on tour.
Yes,
his parent. I mean, look,
that I might give him a pass.
he gets an exemption,
Yes,
not because he's a tour player, because of the story behind it. That's how much he
Mhm.
respected his parents' hard
Yes.
work and dedication. That he can have iron covers, nobody else.
I agree. And the first time I asked that question, I said, outside of the Rye kid to me is younger. Because I think with that episode, the first time I asked that was right around Greensboro, and I think that he was in contention.
Yep.
Or he might even won it
He played
a
great
year or two
last
ago.
year.
Yes. This one, I'm very curious to hear your answer because you've been all over the world. If you could put a restaurant in your kitchen, what restaurant would it be?
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no question. There was a place in Palm Desert called No Date, and No Date was a sushi place run by a guy named Shin. I don't know what happened. It was the greatest place ever. I mean, that place had all you could eat sushi, but it was all you could eat sushi. It was I think it was 40 bucks, but it was any roll on the menu. It wasn't like this, "Oh, just get the California roll and get the this." I mean, it was all those luxury rolls, and anything he made was fantastic. Bill Madonna and I from Bighorn used to eat pounds of sushi. So, and unfortunately during COVID, he'd made enough money, he got tired of fiddling with it, so he shut it down, and so I don't know where Shin is now, but boy, if I could get one more meal at No Date, so good.
Yeah, if you get here, we'll get Sutton and the rest of the crew, and we'll go. We got a pretty good sushi place called Hinoki.
Ooh, I'm in.
It's great. I've been to Nobu in New York, and it's
Okay.
I don't know if it's at that level, but it's not far behind. It's great.
You can take me to the worst sushi place, the best sushi place. I'm gonna be a happy camper. That's so good. So, yes, sushi
So
would be
I gotta I might be down in South Florida early next year,
perfect.
or start of the year. I'll call you. And
Please
you,
do.
I'm not a sea per. I'm, growing up in the Jaws era. There's no way I'm getting in that water. So I'll let you go do the spearfishing and come. I'll sit
Okay.
up on the boat
Alright, I'll bring you
and then we'll get some sushi that way.
that's a done deal. I'll bring you some stuff. That's
Okay.
not a problem.
Transferring from sushi or segueing from sushi to hot dogs, what are your go-to hot dog condiments? You're gonna have a hot dog at the turn.
I cannot believe you asked me this question. That's so funny. So last night we were we were at dinner with the staff at Johnathans Landing, and one of the kids had come in while I was eating a hot dog, and I ate them plain, and I'm like, "Oh my god, it's great! Golf course hot dogs, greatest thing ever." I just, it's a buffet. So I just threw one on there and ate it. He goes, "You don't put anything on there?" He says, "Neither do I." He said, "I've never met anybody else that doesn't do that." So for me, it's
God, now that's a curveball. I never would have. I've had some crazy answers on here, but I have not
yeah, we
had
were talking
plain.
about last night, and he was a little. He had a few to drink, and he was very mesmerized that was that was the only other person that ate a clean dog, as he said.
Let's see. Your Mount Rushmore of coaches. You could put four up there. Who are you going to put? Not to put you on the spot or anything,
Yeah,
but
I was gonna say. I
and
mean,
we will. I will say ahead of time that I don't do this to put people on the spot. I just
yeah, I think if I was going to put the Mount Rushmore coaches, it would be the pioneers. Who was the
me too.
pioneer of 3D motion analysis? Who was the pioneer of psychology? Who was a pioneer of this or that, and the other? So I don't think anybody would really understand or know a lot of the people that I would name, but I would say that it's not the coaches like Butch Harmon, Tony, Tony Penna, or
Mhm.
the litany of other people that come to mind. But I mean, you certainly have to. I will say this. I will say that you have to pay credence to the top 50 being coaches because they are voted on by their peers. I really think that those guys and girls on that list are very well respected. Now, there are people, once again, there's people that should be on the list that aren't on the list, and vice versa. But at the end of the day, those are ranked by all the teachers that are supposed to be in the know, all the professionals are supposed to be in the know. So I would say if you want to look at the Mount Rushmore coaches of what's going on in this business right now, that's where I'd start to look. And then I'd look at the top 100, then I'd look at the best in state, and then I'd just keep going from there. And that's my Mount Rushmore coaches, the guys that are and the girls that are standing on the lesson tee every day doing it.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a great job, but it has its moments and it's a tough job sometimes. But you know what? I wouldn't do anything else.
Perfect. And then last but not least, in your opinion, and very curious to hear yours on this one because you're cross generational. Who is the GOAT? Who is the greatest of all time? You've seen both, who are probably one and two. So very curious to hear who you're going to pick.
Greatest player, greatest. Oh, okay. I was gonna say.
Greatest player. I'm sorry.
I think I'll have to go with the pattern answer. The Jack was the greatest lifetime achiever, and Tiger played the best golf for a period of time. I
Mhm.
mean, Maybe one day AI will be able to put them in some miracle match like, Ali and Tyson or whatever, but he's still amazing. I mean, Jack was pretty good, but Tiger was pretty damn good. No, I only caught Jack. I was born in 71, so I only caught Jack and really paid much attention in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So my biggest recollection of Jack was in 1986 when he won the Masters. And I remember that he was 46. And I see guys now doing stuff at 46 that, they were like, oh, Jack's 46. He's over the hill. He's done, and I can't believe he won this major. And now people are winning long into their, I think, how old was Phil when he won, pushing 50?
Yeah, 52, I think, wasn't he?
52. Okay. Yeah.
He won a PGA. I think he was 52.
Yeah. So I think that when you look at you're going to start to see a lot more longevity. And that to me is the longevity I think I'd have to give the nod to Jack just because of longevity, but there's no doubt that I don't think anybody in the world could have beaten Tiger during that stretch. And I think you could have taken Jack and Ben Hogan, let him play better ball against this guy. I don't think it would have mattered. The only way you're going to beat Tiger back in the day is if you just tackled him.
Yeah, he basically tackled himself with the injuries and stuff that he
That's
did to his body. That's a prime example of when they say you can only beat yourself.
Yes,
Tiger Woods is a shining example. It's like,
yeah, he did.
I don't know if he just got bored or what, but or maybe he was so good. It's like, let me go try these other things. And
Yeah, I don't know. I just decided to, do SEAL training. I guess why not?
yeah, why not go hang out with guys swimming in ice water and doing crazy shit, running 20 miles in combat boots? Got nothing else better to do.
Yeah, that sounds like a treat. I'd really love to do that. I think I'll pass. I think I'd rather be fat.
And fat and happy.
Exactly.
What do you have coming up? You have anything speaking anywhere to this time of year? Sections
Just
are
going to
doing
the Top 100
speakings?
Summit coming up. Do that, and I'll go to the Open Forum, and do some other things like that. To me, this is the time of year this is crazy time in South Florida. All our members are coming back, so I don't get a chance to get away much and interact with my peers because they're too busy and I'm too busy. So I look forward to the PGA show, the Top 100, the Open Forum, and all the things that go with that. To the coaches camp, Andrew Rice, and all those things to really grow the game. And I try to go to as many of them as I can. And as I said, God forbid I learn something.
You just might.
I just might.
It's hard to believe you can cram any more into the head, but you get a little bit more in there every time. Tell everyone best places they can follow you, find
best
you.
Place you can find me is at Tom Stickney Golf, whether it be Tom Stickney Golf on YouTube, at Tom Stickney Golf on Facebook and Instagram. And if you can do that, that would be wonderful. If you ever have any questions, I'm easily found. There aren't too many Stickneys that teach golf in the world. So, call me, email me, text me. I'm always an open book to help anybody I can and give back as much as I can.
Awesome. Tom, it's been great. You give a lot of deep insight. I truly enjoyed it. Everyone told me you're going to have a blast with them, and I did. It exceeded expectations.
Thank you, sir.
How the game's taught today, golfers, how they can get better. It's been awesome. So thank you for coming on, everybody. Thanks for checking us out in another week, and we'll see y'all next time.
Thank you.